Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Center podcast. I'm Emiliya Zhivotovskaya, your host and founder of the Flourishing Center. We are training the change agents of the world and equipping them with research-based tools for healthy, happy, and successful living. And we're so grateful that you're here.
This episode is a practitioner profile, where we highlight ordinary people that are doing extraordinary things. Each practitioner is a graduate of the Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology program from the Flourishing Center. Find out the exciting ways that people are putting the science into practice in their work and how they use positive psychology in their lives with individuals, organizations, and communities to help them thrive.
Thanks for listening, and let's dive in. Lizzie LaRock is a photographer, writer, and a positive psychology-based creativity coach. She's joining us from Steamboat Springs, Colorado. She has created a delicious feast of offerings and spicy, scintillating ways in which she is spreading positive psychology in her community. And I can't wait for you all to learn more about her. And something you wouldn't know about her is that she loves to parody rock songs and make fun of herself and her friends in front of community audiences. This is a new thing that she's kind of reinvented back into her life after years of performing. And so if you want to be her friend, just know that you might wind up as a character on one of her shows. Lizzie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Emiliya. Yeah, you're right. That is a hazard to being a friend of mine.
Totally.
Things that you say might end up in a community theater parody.
You might have to have people sign disclaimers if they want to be your friend. Here's my friendship contract. Lizzie, tell us about what you do and what you don't.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll say, as you said, I'm a photographer, a writer, and a creativity coach. And I teach a class that I adore called The Life Feast. And I like to say that, my work is for anyone who wants to turn off Netflix, get out of their usual routine, and infuse creativity into their day-to-day life, which I think none of us do enough of these days. We're much more consuming rather than creating. And what I don't do, I'm sure I'm guilty of it, but a catalyst for creating this course was that I was getting tired of just talking with my friends and my peers about car seats and kids' activities and school conferences and everything having to do with motherhood and kind of forgetting who I was as a person.
And I would imagine that this has now led to a whole series of things that you try to not do. So when you say these are things you do, what are the things that you're actively working on no longer doing?
Yeah. So I think, let's see. I no longer try to own a restaurant. I'll start with, that's a big one. I am in my background, I didn't come to positive psychology kind of like a lot of people where I was already in wellness and well-being, and this was a great adjunct to all of that. I came from the restaurant world, which was probably the anti-wellness type of work. And so first things first, I will no longer have a business that is so ill-matched to what I want in my life and contributes to my stress level in a crazy, chaotic way. So that's first and foremost. And then I would say I will no longer just be in my car reading my email while carting my kids around to a million different activities that I also would love to be doing. And that's not to say I need to join their dance class, but I like to find my own dance class and find my own creative outlets. So I spent a lot of time just taking my kids, around town to everything that their hearts desired and really focusing on the importance of their enrichment. And then what I was role modeling for them was that my own wasn't important at all, that I was just here to just pay bills and die and take care of everybody else. So those are two biggies that I won't do anymore.
Wow. And I can feel the infusion of joy and energy and vitality that this commitment to yourself and your well-being has brought you. And I know that that has fueled you creating this thing called Life Feast. So tell us, what is this thing?
So, well, the Life Feast, I'll say that for me, creativity, photography, writing, all these creative endeavors that I've had have always been my own positive psychology practices. And I didn't realize that they were. I didn't have the language around it until I discovered you and positive psychology. So, I had been practicing photography since, I like to say the dark room or the dark ages, but it was back in the late 80s and the early 90s. And photography is kind of a fun metaphor. It's an oversimplification of both photography and positive psychology. But the similarity I always love to point out is, you're literally taking a negative and turning it into a positive in traditional darkroom photography. And I, in addition to sort of that, my little metaphor for it all, it was also a practice for me of mindfulness and finding flow in the dark room and engaging my curiosity and flipping my focus, like asking myself to find a different perspective on a situation. And I never kind of put all the pieces together, found the thread of that, of its connection to positive psychology until delving deep into positive psychology. I would say that I came to positive psychology in dovetailing off of my restaurant career and toxic stress level. I came to it through the back door of resilience, and I wasn't really searching for new ways to practice gratitude. However, I absolutely love the gratitude practices that I have today. But I came to it from, really struggling with infertility issues that I had, with massive stress in the restaurant life. My husband went through about 7 or 6 orthopedic surgeries in about a 5-year period. We had really young twin girls. So it was just a whole tornado, I guess, of adversity. And through that, one of my self-care practices was photography. And I didn't actually put it all together, as I said, until delving more into the research and the science of positive psychology, of realizing they were resilience practices that I was putting into place.
That all sounds incredible. So Lizzie, tell us, what are some of the things that people experience when they sign up for a Life Feast with you?
Sure. Okay. Well, I love this question. I think they experience inspiration. They experience getting out of their comfort zones. They experience, a big thing for me is the growth mindset. And for whatever reason, photography is an easy way to teach the growth mindset. I think everyone can kind of accept the fact that nobody came out of the womb knowing how to set an aperture or shutter speed or anything on a camera setting. So, and the barrier to entry for photography is pretty low. We all are walking around with these, amazing cameras that we sometimes make phone calls on or text message on. And so people experience this different relationship with the technology in their life. If they're spending too much time consuming on their screen, they start to, flip it around and spend more time creating with their screen. And I would say also, in addition to learning the growth mindset and learning something new and challenging themselves, in addition to helping people recognize the flow state, one thing that I absolutely love that I teach in the Life Feast is really this art of awareness, of paying attention to what's around us in the everyday. I think that we're so busy rushing through our life that we tend to not, for all cliches, we tend to not stop and smell the roses. And I share this story in the Life Feast about Joshua Bell, a violinist who did a really cool social experiment with the Washington Post, where he was down in a subway station in Washington, D.C., playing on his $3 million violin for 45 minutes in a ball cap and like jeans and a t-shirt. And I think it was over 1,000 people walked by him to get to work that day, to, board the train and get to work. And only about 7 of them actually stopped to hear the music, even slow their gait to hear the music. And what I ask in the course is really, would you have stopped to hear the music? And if art or beauty or whatever isn't packaged in this perfect, approachable way, and you aren't recognizing it all around you, does that affect your life adversely? Would it have improved your morning, your commute, if you had just stopped for a minute or two to hear him play? So it's about bringing in mindfulness into your life in a really tangible way. One where you're actually taking a picture of something so people can be more literal with the mindfulness. Does that make sense?
Thank you so much for offering that, Lizzie, because we're all using our phones all day long. And this idea to pause and actually see the things around us as beautiful, to step into this inner creative space that we all have. We're all creators of something. And taking the time to just notice your environment is something that I think so few of us do when we're so wrapped up. And what are some of the things that you would recommend to people that can help them stay in this type of mindset if they're not necessarily taking a course with you?
Oh, well, I think that obviously everyone should take the course. No, I'm just kidding. but it's really just, so Picasso has this quote that I love, and it's, art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. And, I just think that in adulthood, we all become a little more dusty. Every mortgage payment, every email, every deadline, every carpool we drive, we become a little more dusty. And I think that, just infusing a little more play into our day, a little more, creative frivolity, you could say, is really important. So for anyone who isn't taking the course, but just wants to infuse their life with a little more, a little more inspiration, would just be to notice what's around you. Play it like a scavenger hunt. One of the things that I do is say, look for diagonal lines today, and just start observing in a really neutral way what you see on the street. This morning, I actually was walking my dog, and like I said, it is one of the assignments in the course is to look for diagonal lines and to practice that mindfulness. And I was looking up at my house, and in the sky, there must have been several airplanes. I live near like a smaller airport, and there were all sorts of like crisscrossy airplane lines in the sky. And I thought, oh, there they are, diagonal lines right there. It's everywhere. There's interesting things happening, and we have to put our phones away or look up from them every once in a while to notice them. I share a funny story in there as well, that I was in a hotel in Portland, and there were like Alice in Wonderland size Jenga games and dice, and there was a tarot card reader and donuts, and there was a paint, like a canvas and paints in the corner, and a guy playing the piano. And it was fascinating to me because most of the adults in the room were enjoying all of the kind of circus events going on, but there were like 8 kids, and every single one of the kids had a phone or an iPad in their hands. And, I was like, there's a life-size Jenga game next to a kid with an iPad, and they're not even noticing. So I think it's remembering that we get better at what we focus on. So if you want to get better at paying bills and answering emails and, staring at your phone screen, then pay attention to that. If you want to get better at having a fulfilling life and noticing the beauty around you, it's time to pay attention to something a little bit different.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. And it's so beautiful to know that all the things that you're saying have been supported by positive psychology research. So we know that when we are more in the present moment, we feel happier, we feel healthier, we feel more connected. And the role of technology can be utilized to separate us or to actually connect us more to our world. So I love that you are giving people opportunities to, one, say it is okay to play, and adults need to play to cultivate their creativity, their well-being, their vitality. And that also we can give ourselves this opportunity to be role models for our children so that we don't start perpetuating a culture of just dullness and numbness, and that, children grow up to follow the same patterns that their parents did. And I know that one of our big focuses here at the Flourishing Center is this motto that self-care is healthcare. And you're such a role model for me of the ways in which you incorporate creativity and creation into your self-care. I'm curious if you can share more of the types of things that you use in your day-to-day life with your family and with yourself to maintain your well-being.
Yeah. So, my go-to is the 3 good things practice. That's probably hands down my most favorite well-being practice. And I actually made these because I love photography, I made these little cards that have a photo on one side and then it's blank on the other side. And it's in a jar on our kitchen table with pens, and anyone at any moment, prompted or unprompted by me, can write their 3 good things and put it in the jar. And I absolutely, I've been doing that one for years, and it's so in line with photography as well, as it trains you to look for the good, right? So we're so good at we're expert ninjas at looking for what's going wrong in our life. And I teach in the class that to flip our focus and to focus on what's good is extremely helpful to our well-being. So I practice what I preach in that one. And I have a 3 good things practice just in my journal nightly. But then that one is sort of the dinner table version. And then just as I was talking about seeing the diagonal lines by my house is just walking. I love both for calming me down, for helping me be more present and mindful. I love the vitality piece of that BDNF in our brains, that, what is it? The brain-derived neurotropic factor that increases when we move our body. And I know that when I'm stagnant and sitting too long, staring at a screen myself, which I can certainly be guilty of, walking is so helpful for just reconnecting me to my thoughts and creativity. It's amazing how many ideas I can come up with just moving my body when I might be really stuck as molasses sitting at my desk.
That's such a great point. I know, it's like if I feel stuck, that's my go-to. Just go walk it off. And then all of a sudden, or I can't, so many ideas come while running. It's like, oh, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
Because I wasn't moving. It would
have been so much easier if I just got my butt out of the chair.
Yeah, or thought of that sooner. So with you on that. Oh, these are amazing. And I know that you are constantly putting out your ideas, your tips, sharing with people the adventures of Lizzie LaRock and the great ways that you're putting this stuff into practice. So how can people learn more about what you're up to?
So they can come to my website, larockstarcreative.com. And in that, you can find out about, I have a free program called Gratitude Gravy. That's really fun. And then I have my online course experience workshop, Creative Inspiration, the Life Feast, which is my, favorite thing right now. And also I would say, for those mindful times that I am on social media, I do love Instagram. So at LaRockstar is my handle on there. And that's where I share sort of these funny little snippets of my daily life and how I infuse creativity in just about everything that I see, from a garbage can to, I don't know, airplanes, the airplane clouds in the sky.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Lizzie, for sharing your joy, your enthusiasm, your energy with us. And friends, do check out what Lizzie is up to. It will put a smile on your face every time you see it. You're a little living infusion of positivity, Lizzie, and I'm so grateful to know you.
Oh, thank you, Emiliya. I am so grateful to know you as well. And for all those who think, as I said, I came to this work through resilience, through that bending instead of breaking. So I think that with the right practices, we can all have that positivity infused into our lives. Turn those negatives into positives.
Awesome. Thank you, Lizzie.
This practitioner profile episode is brought to you by the Certificate in Applied Positive Psychology program, the world's fastest growing practitioner training with over 15 programs running every year in 5 cities and online internationally. Discover how you too can turn your passion for well-being, science, and helping others into a career where you help people thrive. Learn more about how you can become a certified positive psychology practitioner at getcertifiedinpp.com.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I want to encourage you to tell us, what would you love to hear more about? Is there an area of positive psychology you would love to get some more information on in terms of the research? Give us a shout out at info@theflourishingcenter.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I wish you a wonderful flourishing day.